You're watching CNBC, America's Business Channel.
It's the last stand for Paul Wolfowitz this morning as the World Bank could decide if he stays or goes. In fact, here now with their respective opinions on this, Jack Berkman, a Republican strategist at J.M. Berkman and Associates, and a former Whitewater counsel, also Faiz Shakir, the director of research at the Center for American Progress. Both are joining us from our nation's capital this morning. And gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Jack, let me start off with you. What do you think's happening here? Is this a situation where Wolfowitz is being thrown under the bus or not?
Oh, Becky, this is aggravating. I hope he's not being thrown under the bus. That's largely the Washington Post reporting this morning trying to drive that. I think the president's behind him. I hope the president's behind him. If this were anybody but Paul Wolfowitz, this story wouldn't even be in the newspaper. Let me tell you why this story's here. Wolfowitz has been on a crusade and a campaign against inefficiency in the bank. If you look at the last 2 decades, the bank in Africa alone has blown about $500 billion. That's somewhere around $20 billion a year. Most of the money's been embezzled by warlords and ended up in the hands of people with munitions. These bureaucrats in the bank, a lot of them, the ones that don't remain bureaucrats for their lifetime, a lot of them go out and become consultants. They live off this fat and this corruption, and Wolfowitz is threatening their little fiefdoms, and that's why people are against him. You know, as for the transgression, Wolfowitz was upfront about it. Paul was right away came forth, admitted it. There was nothing surreptitious, nothing was hidden. You know what I've said before about this. If Wolfowitz had tried to, ram the head of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleading squad or something into a job at the World Bank, yes, that would be a serious offense. This, though, was a very well-qualified woman. It was a question of one job or the other. I don't think there shouldn't be anything here but a slap on the wrist. And I would say, Becky, my distinguished opponent, and all people who have such concern about this on the left, where were they when President Clinton was being accused of offenses far more serious?
Jack, still, though, this morning we are hearing that the German development minister is saying that Wolfowitz isn't welcome at a World Bank Africa meeting in Berlin next week. If he still has his job at that point, how effective can he be?
Well, you have to understand the European, I think, Vera, you have to understand the European feeling. The Europeans don't care about the girlfriend stuff. There's another layer of international politics superimposed on this, in that they hate what Wolfowitz is doing because they believe he's using the World Bank for America's foreign policy purposes in Iraq and the Mideast. And to some extent that's true, but the U.S. pays all the bills. I see no problem with it. What I would encourage President Bush to do, I think he's behind Wolfowitz, despite the Post story this morning. I hope he's behind Paul Wolfowitz. What I would encourage strongly President Bush to do is say, look, first of all,
Jack, I want to get Faz's take on this, too. Faz, what do you think?
I sure hope he goes. And I think it's because if you care about the effectiveness of this institution, if you care about promoting global development, if you care about alleviating poverty, reducing corruption, he's not the guy to do it. So if you really care about those goals, let's move on and find somebody who can accomplish that. And what I say is, sure, I think Jack's saying that, well, there's some underlying problems here that are this controversy. I agree, but what the World Bank Ethics Committee reported is that this particular scandal surrounding his girlfriend was emblematic of the poor leadership that Wolfowitz has shown at the World Bank. It's because he's believed that he's above the institutional standards and rules, and he hasn't felt that he needs to work with allies around the World Bank and around the globe. He feels like he can do whatever the heck he wants to do.
I guess I'm kind of confused by that comment because it begs the question of whether my opponent is more concerned about the girlfriend stuff or he's more concerned about international development.
I'm more concerned about him being an effective leader, Jack.
Well, if, as you claim, you're genuinely concerned about international development, it would seem to me that everyone, right and left, should agree that Paul has done more to help that than anybody in the bank's recent history.
He absolutely has not. Here are some examples of how he's been hurtful. It's one, he's promoted regressive family planning policies. He's tried to play down the link of global warming and carbon emissions in World Bank science reports.
Those are your political views.
He's tried to push World Bank office in Baghdad, of all places, to one of the most corrupt and insecure places around the globe. And on the other hand, he said anti-corruption is his principal issue.
What about stopping waste in Africa? Are you in the least concerned? Are you in the least concerned that $500 billion has been blown in the continent of Africa? And that's not me speaking. That's anyone, right or left, who has studied the bank, even those who love it.
Jack, I agree with you. And if you listen to what the Africans are saying now, those who don't want to reform are being able to stand on a pulpit and say, listen, why should we do anything when you have a corrupt leader of the World Bank who's doling out funds to his girlfriend? So how can you now have an effective leader with credibility to speak to the Africans?
Let me tell you why that's crazy. This guy has saved the bank billions of dollars, and you want to crucify him because he put this woman into a job that paid about $20,000 a year more, and you think that's a reason to throw out the president of the World Bank?
He has nobody's confidence right now. What's he going to be able to do over the next 2 years? I don't think he's accomplished much, and we can disagree on
Gentlemen,
that. But over the next 2 years,
we have to leave it here. I understand there are strong feelings on both sides, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about it. Faiz, Jack, thank you both very much for your time. We appreciate it. Up next, we've got the April